Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, obviously we'd appreciate it if you did that while you're here. Either way, let's get into it. Today we are continuing our Summer Shootaround series that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. Little different setup than we've done in previous years. This summer, we're going to go through the top 10 of my top 25 and 1 in the order that the schools are ranked. We've already done number 1, Kansas. Hope you didn't miss that one. So now we're going to turn our attention to number 2, Alabama. Crimson Tide went 25-12 overall last season, 13-5 in the SEC, finished tied for second in the league standings, lost opening game in the SEC tournament to Florida, then got a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, then beat Charleston, Grand Canyon, North Carolina, and Clemson to make the Final Four of the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. Got UConn in the national semifinals. You know how that went. Alabama finished 14th at both KenPom and BartTorvik.com last season. From that team, Aaron Estrada, Nick Pringle, Rylan Griffin are all gone. That's 3 of the top 6 scorers. But the leading scorer, Mark Sears, he's back. So is Grant Nelson. So is Latrell Wrightsell. And Noah Oates has also added some impactful transfers, among them Aiden Holloway from Auburn and Cliff Omery from Rutgers. Again, I've got Alabama, number 2 in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about that next. But first, give me a word from our partners.
Never before seen matches and new rivalries unlocked.
Trust me, we're just getting started.
The Summer Cup is here. Let these games begin.
All right, Norlander, Alabama as a preseason top 2 team. Can you dig it? Or do you despise it?
I think you got one more of those allowed before you got to switch up your verbiage, or just switch up the question altogether. All right.
No.
I dig this one. I do dig this one. I will strongly consider Alabama for preseason number 1 when I got to do the top 101 list come the preseason. Crimson Tide. How about this? So, yeah, you mentioned first Final Four in school history. Remember, Bama was wicked unpredictable last season on the defensive end, right? They ranked outside the top 100 in defensive efficiency, but they survived in the tournament despite that. They beat trendy Charleston, really, really good mid-major, 30-win Grand Canyon. Then they upset number 1 Carolina, and then they pushed past Clemson in the Elite Eight to make their first Final Four. They kept it close versus UConn for 75% of that game. They lost by 14. It was actually the closest margin of victory for UConn in the entire NCAA tournament, 14. Yeah. Oates did this last season, not just coming off like the Brandon Miller debacle and everything tied to that, but he had to change over his entire coaching staff. And for the program to respond with a 4 seed, which was fair, an offense that was really good, but there were multiple times last season when Alabama just straight up got outrun, and Oates was forthcoming when it comes to his basketball team, which he often is in terms of on-court performance. And he's like, we just don't want to play defense. Everyone knows it. They look at the scout. They know what we are. Big question here moving forward is, will Alabama, which is destined to be a top 5 team in the preseason at worst, like it's got a chance of being preseason number 1. And we'll get to that in a few here. Can it really turn around its defensive identity? And can it do that while maintaining, say, a top 5 offense? Getting Sears back is huge. Recently, when we were both down at Peach Jam, I was sitting next to Fran Fraschilla for a game, and we were just trying to think out loud, all right, who are going to be the preseason first-team All-Americans? And Sears was one of the, RJ Davis you got to have on that list. Cooper Flagg you got to have on that list. Mark Sears, absolutely you have to have on that list. He has the potential here. He averaged, 21 and a half a game last season, GP. For him to be back, Grant Nelson, you have to think, who was good but not outstanding, you got to think he's going to jump up to 15, 16 points a game almost certainly there. GP mentioned some of the other roster stuff as well. We can dive right back into that in a second here. But the fact that Lewis Griffin's big, no doubt about it. Pringle leaving, yeah, that can be an issue. And Aaron Estrada had his grad year. The Hofstra transfer, he's no longer there. But, oh boy, Crimson Tide, they enter this season as the favorites to win the SEC. And it's pretty outstanding what Oates has been able to do and get this program to be in the situation that it's been, with all of the good and the not so good that has transpired with that program under his watch over the past few years. So I think it does have to naturally start with Sears. And can he be just as productive this season as he was last? He did flirt with the NBA draft process, but I believe the whole way that he was coming back, he did. And so here we go. What are your extended thoughts on the Tide? And I know we're doing this in the middle of summer and you're probably unlikely to switch it up, but how close have you gotten to, or did you get at one point to putting, because you got Kansas 1, we did that episode, narrow margins, of course, 1 and 2, but I wonder if you are even open to the idea that maybe you'll switch up your mind here before we get to November and put the Tide number 1.
It's close. No, I don't anticipate switching things up. There would have to be some roster development. Like, it would be breaking news. DeJuan Harris tore his ACL in a preseason practice. All right, now we got to talk, right? It'd have to be something that changes the roster for Kansas and or Alabama. But at this point, I'm assuming I'm going to have Kansas my preseason number 1 in Alabama right here. But I don't think it's crazy, though. Our buddy John Rothstein does have Alabama number 1 in his Rothstein 45. So there's nothing absurd about it. The truth is, this is one of the best basketball programs in America right now. You've mentioned the I think you used the word debacle from a couple of years ago. And I didn't like the way that was handled. We talked about it. But I also don't think I've got to yell about it every time it comes up. It's like, I'm sure I've made a decision in my own life that other people didn't agree with how I handled something. And if it was brought up nonstop all the time, it's like, well, okay, I got it. I hear you. So I can hold both of these things at the same time. I didn't like the way that situation was handled. But this guy is also running one of the best basketball programs in America. I genuinely believe he's one of the best coaches in the sport. And when you start looking at people who could make a transition to the NBA someday, I feel like with his approach to the game, it would work pretty well. I wouldn't rule that out for him. Simply put, if I had a big job and I was looking at a list of people to hire, Nate Oates is somebody I would consider at Kentucky, Louisville, any of those types of places. He obviously reached an extension with Alabama, so maybe he retires there someday.
Maybe.
But he's really already put together a pretty incredible career. This is year 10 for him as a Division I head coach coming up. 4 years at Buffalo, 5 years at Alabama.
Man, it's already been 5 years at Bama. Gosh,
yeah,
that's wild to me that he's
flies.
about to enter his 10th season. By the way, he did push off Kentucky before it got there. Right. He's had a couple of situations in recent years, obviously, where he would have been a big candidate. Oates also, in addition to liking Alabama, has a very significant, but I think his buyout's among the 5 biggest in the sport.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. So he's been a head coach at the Division I level for 9 years. And these are bullet points on his Wikipedia page. 1 Final Four, 2 SEC regular season titles, 2 SEC tournament titles, 2 MAC regular season titles, 3 MAC tournament titles. He's a 2-time MAC coach of the year, a 1-time SEC coach of the year. Still hasn't even turned 50 years old. Mm-hmm. He's really one of the bright young coaches.
Was a high school coach,
high
school teacher before he did all this, by the way.
And they finished top 15 at KenPom in 3 of the past 4 seasons. So he's got this thing rocking and rolling, and they could easily not easily, nothing's easy about this, but they could reasonably set a goal of doing back-to-back Final Fours. What's interesting about this team, among the interesting things, they're going to be really old. Mm-hmm. They might start 4 fifth-year guys. And the projected starting lineup, if you would agree with me that it's probably Holloway, Sears, Reitzel, Nelson, and Amori, that's 5 players who started their college careers somewhere other than Alabama. And 4 of them will be in their 5th year of college.
Well, hold on. I think you meant Nelson, or did you say so Holloway, Sears, Reitzel, Amori? If you didn't say Nelson, I was waiting for you to say Nelson.
I did say Nelson. I thought.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's 5 guys who started their careers somewhere else. 4 of them are going to be in their 5th year of college basketball. So recently we were talking about Cooper Flagg and Duke, and can a reclassified college freshman really be the best player in the country? And an extension of that is, can a team relying on a reclassified freshman so heavily be the best team in college basketball? We'll see. But if you're skeptical, it's because teams like this Alabama team exist, and they're going to be throwing out a bunch of 23-year-olds they're going to be throwing out a bunch of 23-year-olds, and there's a big gap between that and college freshmen.
Yeah, this team, Alabama, generally speaking, should be a team. I don't know if we talk about any single team every single week of the season. There are some that obviously get damn close, and maybe some that actually apply, but I feel like we can go 3 episodes without necessarily talking about a specific team. Alabama will come close because of what you said here. We have the COVID year upcoming. It's the last year guys can use their bonus year. If they were basically the guys that are in their last year now, their first year in college was the COVID season 2021. And so because of that, extremely veteran laden, you've got a lot of pieces back from the Final Four team. Darian Reed's a freshman. I'm interested to see Darian Reed and Aiden Sherrill coming in, top 25 level freshmen. In addition, they've got 2 other freshmen that are, top 40. One's a top 40 guy, another's a top 60 guy, Nasir Cunningham. How much run they actually get on a team that's so veteran laden and how they balance all of that. Holloway could be key here in terms of he didn't pop at Auburn. He was fine. He was a piece. And now he, crosses enemy lines here, stays in the state, stays in the conference, leaves Auburn to go play for Bama. Hello, transfer portal. Hello, NIL. These kind of things obviously mean less and less as the years go on there. Amori is a big, big, big get for them. Rutgers. Now he's a defensive first kind of guy. And he's the exact kind of, I didn't get this from most, but I'm telling you, I know why they got him. In addition to, he was a quality big. Bigs were plenty valued there. I talked with Oates on the record after the loss in the Final Four, and the one thing, I think I mentioned this on the show that night, he was just a bit aghast after all of the scouting and prep and knowing UConn was that great, but still, like, the bigs and defensively, they did not get what they had prepped for in that game. And it was almost like, what the hell did we just prepare for 5 straight days? Amori is an intimidating presence down low and needs to be a guy that can help shore up that Bama defense and change them from from a team outside the top 100 to getting them inside the top 50 in defensive efficiency, if not better altogether. But it is a loaded team. It is a veteran team. And this is, in my opinion, they made the Final Four last season. I'm going to bring this up real quick here. I got to believe last season's Bama team was the second best ever under Oates because he had an even better team. Yes, he did. The year before, they technically finished better, ranked better, didn't make the Final Four. But
they were the number 1 overall seed the year before.
Right. They were number 1 overall seed. Think about this in real time. They actually have had 2 teams. The 21 team that made the Sweet 16 and got booted was top 10. So, this team has a chance to be his best one ever, and well, they sure as hell is scheduled like it. I wait until I get into this schedule on you. But before we do that, any other dangling thoughts on what Oates and company have here bringing to Tuscaloosa this season?
Well, you mentioned they've got to get better defensively. Nate would tell you the same thing. He verbalized that last season. They made the Final Four despite finishing ranked 121st in adjusted defense. That's according to Bart Torvik. I think it was a little better at KenPom.
111, yeah.
And sometimes coaches have a certain thing attached to them, like, oh, yeah, he's an offensive-minded coach or he's a defensive-minded coach. And, well, you can always trust that this team's going to be good offensively, shaky defensively, or vice versa. The truth is, at Alabama, he's had elite offenses and elite defenses, just never on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, they had the number 2 offense in America, terrible defense outside of the top 100. Year before that, number 3 defense.
They were good on offense.
And I think
not
top 20 in offense, but not
elite. Yeah.
And then 2021, they ranked 3rd in adjusted defensive efficiency. This is according to KenPom, but 30th in adjusted offensive efficiency. So listen, it's very hard to have be top 5 in both, top 10 in both. That's a UConn Dan Hurley thing. It's a difficult thing to do. But he's clearly capable of having an excellent team on both sides of the ball. They just got to figure out how to be both sides of the ball at the in the same year. I love the style of play. I know it's not for everybody. I love how committed he is to it. Some coaches will tell you, I'm going to coach to my team every year, my personnel every year. And that's fine. There's a million different ways to do this, but they're going to play a pretty similar style at Alabama, no matter who is there. And then they're going to recruit to it. So last season, 46.5% of their field goal attempts came from 3. Year before that, 47.2. Year before that, 47.6. Year before that, 46.5. Roughly half their shots are coming from the 3-point line. And every once in a while, you'll hear a traditionalist or somebody who just isn't, aware of the data suggest that this isn't the way to do it. You can't win like this. I always go back to 2018 Villanova, 47.5% of their field goal attempts came from 3. They won the national championship. They made 40.1% of them. They had the best offense in the sport. By the way, the Celtics that just won the NBA title, they take 90 shots a game.
Yeah, I think did they not set NBA records? Like it was.
Yeah, it's crazy. Woo! I mean, they took 90 shots a game and like 42.5 of them came from three. 47.1% of Boston shots this season came from three. They made 38.8% of them. So listen, it's not great to take a million of them if you're not going to make a decent percentage.
Yeah.
But if you can make them at a decent rate, good rate, then that is the way to have the best offense in the sport. It's to launch from is about half your shots, a little less than half the shots need to come from that 3-point line. Villanova won a title doing it in 18. Celtics just won a title doing it in 24. I don't want to sit here and say Alabama, I guarantee you will win one doing it this way, but they can. They can. Yeah. And I won't be surprised if they will.
Sears shot 43.6% from three last season. He took 218 of them. Right cell shot 44.7, even better on 152 attempts. They don't have Griffin, but they still have enough there. All right, let's get into the schedule here. Oh my gosh. Alabama has the toughest schedule in the country. I haven't looked at everyone at this point. I will be stunned if anyone ranks higher than Alabama in strength of schedule. Get a load of this. It's even the bye games are ridiculous. So they open up against Arkansas State, which, if you don't know, like they're coached by a former Alabama assistant, Brian Hodgson, who can't get anyone. I saw him at the Adidas thing. He said, Nate scheduled me as a favor. There's one other one. I can't, I'm blanking on it. He said, Brian said, I'm going to track this. And if there is a single high major coach that has a half a comment on scheduling, we're calling him out. He said this half joking, half serious, because we could not get anyone. Literally every single staff. However, they're going to play Arkansas State, which is again, high and mid-major. Going to host McNeese State. Will Wade could be a 31 team again. And then we get into the bulk of this. They're at Purdue. They're versus Illinois and Birmingham. They're in the Players Era Festival where they're scheduled to play Houston, which is the next team coming up in our shoot-around series here. So that'll be the next episode early next week. And in addition to that, they'll then either play Notre Dame or Rutgers. Well, Rutgers could actually be interesting. Notre Dame, we'll see. And then they'll play one of San Diego State, good team. Creighton, good team. Oregon, maybe solid. A&M might be top 25. Then they're at North Carolina, December 4th. They host Creighton in the SEC Big East. They're at North Dakota. You heard me correct. I don't know why. I think it's the Grant Nelson return game. He's from that area. At North Dakota. And then, oh yeah, by the way, they wrap up hosting Kent State and South Dakota State, who are also could be like top 25 mid-major programs. Think about it. They play Houston, Carolina, and Purdue. They were all one seeds last year. Now that those schools, Houston might be just as good. Purdue maybe takes a step back. Carolina, we'll see. The non-conference schedule is outrageous. And then in league play, they get Auburn twice. They get Kentucky twice. They get Mississippi State twice. All of those should be NCAA tournament teams. They're only at Arkansas with Calipari. They don't get to host Arkansas. They're only at Tennessee, which under Rick Barnes, you got to figure they're going to be a tournament team again. They're only at Texas, could be a tournament team. They're only at A&M, which should be a top 25 level team. And then they get to host Georgia, maybe a sneaky NCAA tournament potential. Ole Miss, same thing. They're going to host them, and they host Florida, so they don't have to do the home and homes with those. The schedule's outrageous. They're going to enter the season. Here's a trivia time for you. Shouts to Thomas Dowdle, who sent us this. How many times, I brought it up on the show, but I didn't have the exact answer. How many times in history do you think the men's basketball program in Alabama has been ranked higher than the football program in the preseason?
I will say this is going to be the second time.
Loser.
This will be the 8th time
when
it happened. It's happened 7 times, and it's going to happen in 8th because Alabama is going to be a top 3 team, I think, in the AP. It is
important to remember. Even I forget this sometimes. Before Saban, there was like a pretty big gap where they just weren't Alabama football.
And there's a lot of that. So the only 7 times it's happened is 90-91, 91-92, and then you go 01, 02. Yep. 04, 05, and 06. All of those years.
That's when I personally put the Alabama football program down for a few years. I actually he's not kidding. I literally played a role in this, I think.
He's not kidding, boys and girls. Google Gary Parrish, Alabama, once upon a win. That was absolutely the thing there. Anyway, high hopes, ridiculous schedule, and if every coach scheduled like Nate Oates, oh my God, what an amazing place college basketball would be in November, December, because this is as aggressive as it gets. Even the mid-major games are really good. Their net ranking, if they just do what we think they'll do and be a top 15 team, their net ranking is going to be absurd. They're going to be a team who's better than their record. So because of how difficult it is, GP, I'm putting the over-under at 22.5 regular season wins. At Purdue, at North Carolina, at North Dakota, the Players Era Festival, they could play Houston. They got the SEC. There's just so many opportunities for them to lose. And consider, what if they're only like the 75th best defense again? So I put them, even with the high ranking, regular season over-under. I went first last time. You're up first this time. 22.5.
Okay. Let me work through it. Are we doing 20-game league schedule?
It is. SEC is a 20-game league schedule.
Okay. I'm going to say,
I believe so.
I'm going to say 15-5 in the league. And that's good enough to win it.
Yeah, that'll probably be, at least it's good enough to finish tied for first. How about that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 15-5 league champion. I got 5 league losses. You
What
ready
was
for
it
this?
last year out of curiosity? Hold on. I'm checking.
It was 14-4 Tennessee.
Ooh, there we go. Okay.
So we're adding 2 more games to everybody's schedule. The league is tough. I've got 7 SEC teams in the top 25 and 1 more than any other conference. The league's great. So I'm going to say 5 league losses, still as at least a co-champion, 4 non-league losses.
Oh my gosh.
And I think they're going to be great, but you're going to lose some of these games.
Yeah.
Let me go back. I'm going to say 3 non-league losses, 5 league losses, 8 losses before the SEC tournament. 31 minus 8 is, I believe, 23. I hope it is. I'm going over 23-8 heading into the SEC tournament. I'm over by a half.
We are exact. So we are both at 23-8. No, let's document this stuff as well. I'll go 23-8. There'll be a 23-8 team with
23-8 number 1 seed.
27-4 DNA potentially. Yeah, like it's
a 23-8 loss 1 seed,
which has happened before. I want to say Michigan State a few times. I believe there have been 8 loss 1 seeds. You're catching me in the middle of in the summer here, so I'm not as fresh on that as I should be. But it has happened, and going in blindly this season, if there were ever a team and resume where it would appear that can happen here, it's this team and this resume that they potentially have on because the Arkansas State and McNeese State, when they win, those could potentially be Q2s. Maybe they'll be higher in Q3s. I just don't think. I don't think they'll have a single. I don't have their entire thing in front of me. They might not have a single quad 4 game on the resume, which is obviously very helpful as well. So, yeah, Nate Oates made the Final Four, lost a few key pieces, brought in some others, and is absolutely ramping up and not scheduled afraid. I'll tell you this, for the benefit of the sport, I want to see Alabama thrive because I want coaches that are maybe tinkering with this idea and being a little more ambitious to see this. And I want Alabama to be an example of why I want to see some of this catch on just a little bit more. It's all too common. I get the reason why for teams to only schedule 3, maybe 4 notable non-con games, and even the quality of those can vary here. This is absurd up and down the docket. Kansas has had a few in recent years that's been pretty intense, and there have been a couple other teams. But to me, going in, again, taking into account the mid-major teams, like, is Kent State going to be the weakest team on this non-con? That's insane if so. There haven't been many over the past 10, 12 years that I've seen that have been as difficult as this. Kudos to Oates and the staff for doing it.
I'm with you. I love it. It's better for the sport. It's better for Alabama's fans. You're asking people to spend a lot of money on season tickets. Why not give them quality games to watch?
To that point, I'm glad you brought that up because that's the last thing I had in this note. They only play 6 non-con home games.
Right.
So in the league play, they're going to have stuff. There will not be another team in the country at a high major level that's going to play 6 non-con home games. I mean, there maybe, find me if you see it. If anyone matches it, most will probably dip down as low as 7, but only 6 non-con. Everything else is a road or a neutral.
And that's obviously low. So let me rephrase. It's not the best season ticket package, but it's a fun thing. Like, hey, who are we playing tonight? Oh, wow, I can't wait for that. As opposed to, some school nobody cares about. I like it when coaches get aggressive with it because you can in basketball. You can take losses in basketball and still end up in the Final Four, still end up a national champion. In football, I totally understand why coaches wouldn't schedule this aggressively because it can really, even if you have a playoff caliber team, keep you out of the playoff. But if you've got a good team, you'll make the NCAA tournament even with losses. I like it when coaches do that. It's not lost on me that this is the perfect time to do it. Coming off a Final Four, brand new contract extension, and you've got an All-American guard coming back.
Everything.
I mean, it sets up. And the thing with Sears, I don't feel like we emphasize this enough. A whole lot of Cooper Flag hype. Dude, if Mark Sears picks up right where he left off, he will emerge as the early favorite to be National Player of the Year because he was getting big-time numbers as, that's how they ended up in the Final Four.
It's something that I will keep at front of mind, and I'm not close to deciding. We don't have to be deciding for 2 months here. But the idea that Cooper Flag has all this hype, and so he needs to kind of be like the de facto number one choice for National Player of the Year, I don't know about that.
Well, I just wrote about this, and like it. Even as somebody who does, you just forget how uncommon it is for a freshman to be the best player in the country. It's not,
and
normal.
he might be that uncommon.
He might,
open to that.
Yes, but it's
if
not.
Sears averages 23 points on a 1 seed that wins the SEC, I'm gonna tell you blindly, like he would be the favorite to win the National Player here if that situation actually played out.
Right. The problem that Cooper Flag will run into, and then we'll is. Like you've got Mark Sears on a top 5 team. You've got RJ Davis on what I believe is a top 5 team. You got Hunter Dickinson on what I believe is a top 5 team. And these are all Americans who are back in school. Like how uncommon is it for people who didn't catch the story? There's only been 3 ever. Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson. And if Cooper Flag is the National Player of the Year as a freshman, because he's reclassed and only 17 years old, doesn't turn 18 till December, he will go down in history. If he does it, he will be the youngest player to ever win National Player of the Year in college basketball. That's what you're asking him to do if you're asking him to do it. And I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying it's a big ask.
And that's a teaser for our Duke Summer Shootaround, which is coming later in August.
Yeah, at some point. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to and watching the Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected. So make sure you're doing that, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Up next, it's Houston. Till then, take care.